The latest Pokemon Presents presentation gave us a full reveal trailer for Pokemon Legends ZA. I feel like they announced this ages ago. Was it last Pokemon Day? Was it really like a whole entire year ago? Why did they announce it so early? I don't know, but it's really, really great to finally get a full reveal. You know, naturally, I'm a very, very big fan of Pokemon Legends Arceus. I think that really it laid the groundwork for like what Pokemon should be in the future. At this point, it really does seem like it's not necessarily the future of Pokemon overall. I really do think they're going to keep Legends as like its own kind of playground for experimenting with a more action-oriented style of combat. And then the mainline games will probably always be just like the regular turn-based. Whatever, that's a whole, get on the whole entire thing today. Point is, I loved Arceus. I loved it, loved everything it did. It was the most fun Pokemon game I'd played since I was a kid. And so I'm really excited about ZA and really excited about some of the stuff that ZA does, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The trailer was full of a few little things and then a couple really big things. So let's start with the little stuff. I might not have even noticed this, but some people were pointing out how the protagonist seems a little older than usual. And you know, I think that's true. I think that's right. Looks like maybe a young adult or an older teenager rather than like a 12-year-old or whatever. So that's kind of nice. Just kind of a little bit older. That's good. We got a look at the starters and weird, very weird. Chikorita, Totodile, and Tepig. Naturally, two of those are Gen 2. Yeah, like with Legends Arceus, it really kind of seemed like, yeah, like, you know, it's not going to have original starters, so we can just pull starters from anywhere. Oh, cool, perfect. We can pick 3 different generations, but this time they decided to go with 2 Gen 2 starters, and then the third one is the odd one out. That seems weird, but at the same time, I'm sure there's a reason. I'm sure that there is an absolutely perfect lore-related reason why they did this. There always is. I just haven't talked with Loxton yet. I'm sure he's working on the video right now. And I mean, I'm certainly happy about it. You know, the last few years, we've gotten so much Gen 2 love. Oh my gosh. Like, yeah, the fact that I could get Cyndaquil and the other one, now I get Totodile? Like, it's perfect. He was my guy. Totodile was my guy. Silver, way back in the day. Chikorita's fine. I was never big on Chikorita. Tepig. Not really big on Tepig either. I was calling him Grumpig in the stream, getting my pig Pokemon mixed up. Anyway, point is, Totodile. And the thing about Totodile is he's the coolest little Pokemon ever, but he evolves into, he's got that starter evolution syndrome where he evolves into just a nasty, horrible monster for alligator. But then that's the exciting thing about putting something like one of those starters in a Legends game, because Legends Arceus had the alternate final evolutions. It was still like the same evolution with the same name, it just had like a different form and different typing. So that means that now Totodile gets another shot. I mean, Chikorita too. They both get another shot at having a good final evolution. So that's exciting. But this time around, instead of just having an alternate form for the final evolution, they are bringing back Mega Evolutions. And so at first I was excited because I thought maybe that would mean a different final evolution and then a Mega of that. So is it like double the different? That's probably not the case though. If they're, yeah, chat was setting me straight. They were saying, no, Legends Arceus was set in the past. That's why they had alternate forms. Here, they'll probably have the regular forms, and the Megas themselves will probably be alternate or something. Whatever. Mega for alligator. Fingers crossed. But it is also just interesting they're bringing back Megas. You know, each generation they introduce a new thing, a new like temporary power-up kind of thing, and we're kind of reaching the point where they've got to be running out, and so it makes perfect sense to start cycling back around, you know. So now even in the paper TCG, they're bringing Megas back to there. Megas are coming back here. I don't know if Gen 10 is gonna go with Megas or have its own special thing. Maybe it'll have a special new version of Megas. I really don't know, but point is, they're bringing back Mega Evolution, which is cool, which is fine. Out of all of the temporary power-up gimmicks, I feel like Mega Evolutions are probably the most just kind of simple and straightforward and approachable, and probably the most popular, but the coolest too. I mean, you know, your Pokemon can get really big or get all shiny and get a big hat, or it can be like super cool. Which one? You want giant? You want shiny with a hat, or do you want like really, really awesome? Your choice. Anyway, yeah, the trailer, went into little details. It introduced some of the other characters. I see that the villain from the meme, AZ, he's from the meme, right? He's from the whatever, the meme, the thing. I think he was a villain of the other game, and now he's a happy friend character here, and I do think that is cool. I'm not up to date on all the lore and everything. I did not play X and Y, so all the cool Z stuff is like completely lost on me, and I'm sure there's so much more to enjoy about this whole reveal. But I'm just like, hey, I think it's that guy, right? From the meme. Why is he 12 feet tall? Why is he just 12 feet tall? Why is he just like hunched over and still absolutely towering over everybody? It's kind of terrifying. Anyway, so let's talk a bit about just the fact that this game takes place in a city. When they first revealed that it was taking place in a city, that was definitely interesting because, Legends Arceus took place in the past. It's nothing but undeveloped wild, It wasn't even like Scarlet and Violet where there's like cities and stuff. No, you've got your one little village and like that's pretty much it. It's just purely untamed wild country, and so it's mountains and it's hills and it's forests and things like that. So just the very idea of it taking, like, having that same format, that same like open zone kind of feel take place in a city, very interesting. And I think a lot of us imagined that there would probably be some pretty major like biomes, kind of like what do you, Scarlet and Violet, like DLC, you have like these separate areas. Oh, it's the ice area, it's the sand area, or whatever. Here we got a look of how it's actually going to look, and it's a little bit surprising. These, like, it even says wild zones. This is a city, and the entire point of the city is to create a space that is equally inviting for people and Pokemon. So I guess integration was kind of the goal there. They didn't want there to be any areas that were like just for Pokemon. So what you get here is mainly just areas that really do look like they belong in a city. You know what I mean? Like we didn't even get a look at like a big park. Not even like just like a big foresty area. It's the park, it's like Central Park. It's the big, no, pretty much in this trailer, we mostly just got, there's some planters around here with some grass. There's like some grass over here. Okay, there's like a place over here where like there are strips of earth that are sand instead. So yeah, I don't know, and we don't know ultimately what it's going to be like. Maybe there will be some more like major biome kind of areas. At the moment, it is a little weird. I'm not like writing it off or anything. I'm not worried about it, but it is weird. Yeah, if narratively it makes sense to have these areas that are integrated. You don't want any area that's just for Pokemon and not for people. But just, I don't know. I'm wondering if it could be done better. And it is a little weird that this is essentially the sequel to Legends Arceus. But the very feel of the game is changing really, really dramatically. That game, you're riding on the back of these fantastical Pokemon, and eventually you're just like soaring over the landscape, and you're bounding and all this stuff, and looking at it here, it really is just a city. It really is. It is just a city where people live, and they are converting it into a place where people and Pokemon live, and it's interesting, and it shows the character kind of exploring the rooftops, which is cool. I like that. You like kind of warp up to the top. And you've got the ground and you've got the rooftops. But then like some little parkour in there. I guess you couldn't call it parkour, but like running and jumping and kind of like climbing up ledges. At one point it shows them like kind of jumping off and kind of either doing a fancy jump or just gliding down onto the top of another building. And that's making it seem like maybe instead of riding on the backs of Pokemon, we're just using Rotom. Like, is Rotom just going to be the all-purpose navigation traversal tool that just you beat this gym, so now you get the one that lets you glide, and now you get the one that lets you fly a little bit, now you get the one that lets you swim. Based on this trailer, that seems probably fairly likely, and that would be less exciting. That would be significantly less exciting than like riding on the back of a weird ear and bounding over the hills. Instead, you're just like upgrading your thing and if everything is literally just city the entire time. It's slightly, again, not like worrisome or anything, but yeah, I don't know. The feel is just so different. It's so much less grand. But at the same time, different doesn't always have to be a bad thing. Sometimes it can just be different. You know, you lose something when you leave behind those big untamed wild areas. But instead, now you get a Pokemon game that really does just take place entirely within a city. And I think that's cool. And it's, you know, they have had cities in Pokemon games. Lumiose was like the biggest city ever or whatever, like in a Pokemon game up to that point. And you know, now you know, I play Scarlet and Violet, and cities are just like these kind of like isolated things where you travel through the countryside to get to the city. And then you're in the city, and it's like, you know, it's a city. There's NPCs, and there's stores, and a gym, and then eventually you leave, you know? Just kind of like these limited, isolated things. So, this really would be a unique opportunity to just have a Pokemon game take place entirely within a city so that you don't feel like it's this isolated thing. You genuinely feel like it's a city, you know? It's like you're playing Spider-Man or GTA or something. The game is the city. Everything you do in that city. It is your entire setting. And I don't know, I just think that's an interesting angle for a Pokemon game. Even if we do lose a little bit of elements, a little bit of that feel, you kind of gain a new feel. So I'm slightly wary of it, but also kind of excited about the possibilities, even just like narratively, just everything about it. What is it like to have a Pokemon game, even with battles and catching Pokemon and all, and they're wild and all that stuff, except they are in the city. I still don't know where they're coming from. If they're wild Pokemon, are they just like, where are they? Is there going to be like an explanation? Oh yeah, they come through these holes that we catch them out in the wild and we ship them here. We dump them in, or are they attracted here somehow? I don't know. But just the idea of like being on a city street and battling a wild Pokemon is a little bit. It's a little bit like, I get like you know, integrating Pokemon and people, but like it's like the ones that are already together. The companions, not just like wild ones. Yeah, just like fighting a Garbodor in like an alley. It's just like a very weird, just like in a cramped little alley. Very strange where the series has come. Speaking of battling and catching Pokemon, though, now we come to the two absolute biggest takeaways from this trailer. IMHO. The first one, KO catching. It shows the player knocking out a Pokemon, bringing their HP to 0, and still throwing the ball and catching him. How long is it? 30 years? 30 years next year? And we can finally do it the way that they do it in the anime, the way that like intuitively you imagine you would knock out the Pokemon and catch it that way instead of like just getting its health down. We can finally do it. And it's probably going to be like a window. It's probably going to be like they will despawn if you let them. But if you can catch them within that window, I imagine, it just makes sense. And golly, there's so much to say about that. It's kind of, I mean, like, at the risk of spinning this off into a whole like just game design tangent, I understand why they put that limitation there of like, you know, narratively, we go, that doesn't make sense. Why can't I just knock it out like in the anime? But then of course Legends Arceus kind of, oh yeah, because then they shrink down to microscopic size, and that's weird. But like whatever, mechanically I've always understood it. It would be too easy if all you had to do was knock them out. Okay, well I can just level up one overpowered Pokemon and use it the entire game and knock out everything and catch everything flawlessly. That's not fun. It's just introducing more challenge by limiting the players, so they have to reduce its health as much as possible, and that itself is a challenge, and it forces you to have lower level Pokemon. And sure, it can be kind of frustrating, but I've always thought it was pretty fun. I know it's a little divisive. Some people don't like it. Some people do. I've always thought that it was fun. But like, again, change is a good thing sometimes. And you know what? I've been doing that for 30 years. So I love the idea of giving us, especially if it still has a limitation. If you have to catch it within that window, that's fun. And that's just feeding into the fun of the Legends games that already exists, which is taking this thing that has always been very turn-based and methodical and mechanical and adding more of an action more of a tactile element to it. That's why I loved Arceus. I can throw the Pokeball myself. There's a button for it. I can aim it, I can throw it, and just that action of like throwing my Pokeball and having my Pokemon come out, throwing a Pokeball at a wild Pokemon and having it catch it right there, that was just so fun. It just felt so good. And so this new mechanic, like adding just another little thing where like timing actually matters. You're not just getting it weak and hitting the button. You're actually like, okay, I'm going to knock it out and I'm going to throw that ball at just the right time. It feeds into all of that, and so I love it. I just absolutely love it. It seems like a very small change, but in the case of Pokemon Legends, you know, you're catching Pokemon like crazy. They've never made a Pokemon game where you catch Pokemon like you do in Legends Arceus. You're supposed to catch a bunch. You're not just catching them to train them. You're catching as many as possible so you can like research them. And I don't really know how this game is going to handle that on that topic, because you know back then Pokemon were kind of like new. You know, we were like newly studying them. I don't know what the deal will be here. I don't know if they will still have like a please catch as much Pokemon as possible thing. I don't know. Maybe we're trying to make a place for people in Pokemon, but it's being overrun by Pokemon. Please catch them and go put them outside like spiders. I don't know. But anyway, I just love that change. And finally, oh my dear goodness. Oh my goodness. Arceus. Probably, I mean, there was so much to like about that game, but probably my single favorite thing was just they made battles feel less rigid. The fact that you seamlessly drop in and out of battles. They're just right there in the field. You're not going to another screen or anything. You're manually throwing out your Pokemon. It's coming out, you're doing the battle, and then you are able to walk around during the battle. It just did so much for the feel of the game. Even though it was still so limited, it still made me dream of a Pokemon game that is more action-oriented. It came close enough to that it just kind of excited me, even though it was still very limited. And again, I don't think Pokemon is ever going to go completely this way. They're never going to want to leave behind that core identity completely, and that's why they've introduced the Legends series. So I'm just saying I am just, oh, I'm pleased as punch. I am so happy to see further evidence of that. Further evidence that that is precisely what they are doing. Because the more like big and open and grand and 3D these games get and the better the graphics get, the weirder it gets that our Pokemon are just standing still, rooted to the spot, shooting bites at each other. You know what I mean? It's so rigid, and it was hard to have a little bit more openness in Arceus and then go to Scarlet and Violet and have it kind of taken away. So I'm unbelievably happy to see that here in the next Legends game, they are moving further into that territory. They're moving closer to just an action Pokemon game where you are still commanding your Pokemon. You're still selecting their attacks just like in the anime, just like it would be in real life. You're still like verbally commanding them. It still is using more or less the foundation of like it's still RPG. You're still raising them. It's just like the combat itself. I just want a little bit more say in it. And then of course it also had the whole like agile style, strong style thing. Does this have that? It didn't show it, did it? I completely forgot about that until just now. Did they take that out? I hope they didn't take it out. Maybe they did because of this new system. Whatever. Guys, you see I'm rambling like crazy here. My brain is going crazy. Now, moving around in combat actually means something. You move around and your Pokemon follows you. Attacks now have like areas of effect. They have like reach. Now attack timing is gonna matter. Yeah, and now that I say it out loud, that's absolutely, if they did remove the agile strength style thing, that's why, because it's not really necessary anymore. Because now it's not just stat based. It's not just a strictly turn-based game anymore. You're adding this real-time element where the attacks themselves and the range and yeah, the area of effect, the timing and everything matters because you can now move around the stage and guide your Pokemon around so you can avoid attacks. It is taking the foundation laid out by Arceus. It's taking the seed of the idea that Arceus planted and is growing it in a way that I feel is perfect. Just everything I could have possibly wanted. And of course, talking about it like this, anytime you talk about Pokemon, it's hard not to kind of like highlight how ridiculous it is that these gameplay changes are so small, and yet we freak out about them so much. Because looking at this combat, it's not that fun to look at. It's still very stilted. It still seems very like kind of sluggish and slow. But really it matters when you just look at like where the series has come from and how long that it's been there. Even this kind of rudimentary combat, to me, represents such a massive, massive change to the formula. One that very fortunately does not threaten to compromise the purity of the mainline games. Again, that's why I'm so happy it's going this way. Like, you give it, like, it's so many different Nintendo series. I'm not gonna name any of them, but you can probably imagine some of the ones I'm talking about. You want to go with a new style? Like, just split it off. Give us two. You got the new one and you got the old one. Just give us a spin-off. Whatever. It's just, I don't know. To me, this is the best case scenario. I love this. If I want to be slightly critical about one aspect, the fact that your Pokemon's movement, it seems to be tied to the character. I'm hoping that there is more flexibility there. I'm hoping that they're not literally just tied to you, and the only way to move them is to move yourself, because I loved the freedom in Arceus. I loved just like the feeling of like, I'm up on a rock or something. I'm standing on the ledge above and I'm looking down and I'm shouting out commands to my Pokemon and they're fighting. I loved being able to position myself wherever I need to in the battle to like get a good view. So I'm really hoping that it's not literally just like your Pokemon sits there by your side and every time you move, it moves them, and there's no other way to move them, because that really does lock you in place, and that means that your own personal like positioning is gonna matter a lot. And I do recognize that in making the gameplay this much more like live, like action-oriented, it really does put a lot more on the player, and that does make it way less of a casual experience. It means that you do have to be like really right there with your Pokemon, dictating every little movement and the timing and everything. It makes it a lot more complex. You know, Pokemon, it's a good series for just kind of turning off your brain and just like grinding and fighting and stuff. This really does turn it into something so much more hands-on and complex than it has ever been. And so again, there could be something lost if you do it that way. I maybe if I like rewind the footage and watch it a bunch of times, I'll see better. And if not, maybe we'll just wait till it comes out. I don't know. I'm just hoping that there are maybe ways to help your Pokemon evade that aren't just leading them around by a leash. You know, I don't want to have to like always be on in that way. But yeah, I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. I think it's amazing. I just think it's amazing. The timing, the like aiming, positioning, all of these things matter now. And you can just kind of like how in Arceus, they took every move and they applied different stats to them. This is a more strong thing, this is a faster thing, and that's going to affect the turn order, and I loved that. So now they get to do the same thing. They get to take all of these moves and imagine what the reach and the speed might be. How does this move play out? And it's not just about this move does this much damage or it has this effect. The end, that's it, that's what the move is. Now, it really, really matters if it can hit the thing at all. It doesn't matter how strong the attack is. If it is difficult to land a blow, that is going to play into how viable that attack is to use, and it's going to affect your strat. Just like, I don't know. It's just so much. There's just so much to consider now, and I'm sure plenty of people will not be happy about that, but I am overwhelmingly happy about it, and I am very, very excited to play Pokemon Legends ZA when it comes out later this year. I mean, I guess I should touch on the graphics or whatever. I don't know. It's fine. Like, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. And especially like going from the rolling hills and whatnot, the natural environment to the city. The natural environment, it was easier to see the flaws because it's trying to be, you got to render all the grass and stuff. So it was like easier to see the technical flaws. But then the overall look was still just very nice and serene, kind of in that Breath of the Wildy kind of way, where it's not like impressive, but it's still like it's nice. You're still sort of looking at an environment. The city itself, you know, kind of like I was talking about earlier, it's not super exciting. It doesn't feel super grand. It is just kind of a lot of buildings. I would like to see more variation in the buildings. So if the trailer looked like anything, it looked plain. Yeah, not bad, but not good. So at this point, I don't expect much from a Pokemon game on Switch. This is probably the final Pokemon game we'll get on Switch. I don't know, maybe Gen 10 will be cross-gen. I hope not. Maybe it would make sense business-wise to do it that way, but I don't know. There's a fine chance this will be the last one, and so I'm just, yeah, I don't know. I don't ever have any hopes for a Pokemon game on Switch. I hardly pay attention anymore, so I guess I don't really have anything to say about that other than, I don't know, looks fine. It looks like a game. And you know what? That is disappointing. I shouldn't just give it a pass. The trailer did not look good, and that is not fair. I should be able to look at the trailer for the big, exciting new Pokemon game that's more action-heavy than any other Pokemon game before, and it still doesn't look good. You know, it's not... The graphics aren't good. They're not really interesting. It's not really animated very well. So yeah, I guess that's worth pointing out, I suppose, but at the same time, I don't know. It's a thing, I guess. So those are my long and rather rambling thoughts on the reveal trailer for Pokemon Legends ZA. I'm rather excited to play it. Thank you very, very much for watching. Please have yourself a wonderful day.